And we welcome you in. Ittner Architects is always hosting our latest roundtable, and today it's a symposium, School Safety and Security, and we're going to start with our friends from Illinois. We have with us today Jeff Vose, who is the President, Illinois State Regional Office of Education. He's also the Chairman of the Governor in Illinois, the Governor's Task Force on Safety and Security. Bob Diber, Madison County Regional Office of Education, past President of the Illinois State Regional Office of Education. Ben Schwarm also joins us, Deputy Executive Director, Illinois Association of School Boards, and member of the Governor's Illinois Task Force on Safety and Security. And Sarah Bocek, Associate Director and Legal Counsel, Illinois Association of School Administrators. All right, we got that out of the way, so we welcome our panel. And I'll just go around the table. We'll start with Jeff here, Jeff Vose. And the topic of security in the classroom, in the schools, how much is that on your agenda every day? And I'm sure over the years it's shifted, but how big a concern is that as we sit in 2016?
I have, in my area is Sangamon County, which is Springfield, Illinois. It's on the minds of school superintendents. We have monthly meetings and meet with them, and this is a topic that comes up on a regular basis. And it's a concern, and that's kind of why the governor put the task force together out of the Sandy Hook tragedy. That's how I became chairman of that, and Ben is on that task force also, and we meet on a monthly basis. So we got it's all about prevention and preparedness in regards to school safety. So that's how this has come about, and it's almost daily. We're going to meet again February 19th and get an update from the task force.
And I'm wondering, Ben, how much you can learn from tragedies, as awful as they are. How much do you look at what happened in terms of being proactive in the future?
Sure, and there's a lot of studies out there on that, and part of what we did in the task force is gather some of those from various states and various experts, and there is a lot of information, but the scope of school security, though, is so huge. I mean, obviously you talk about active shooters. You have to talk about your drills and your safety procedures. You have to talk about your physical plan. And is the building actually safe? And then you expand it out to the mental health issues, bullying issues. So it's really a huge issue to get our arms around, but we're plodding through it with our task force.
I wonder, Bob, in your world too, how much do you hear from teachers or principals that say, hey, we need help with this, or what is our game plan, or are we changing our procedures? Is there a lot of feedback from those who are actually in the classrooms?
Yes, there is. School safety and our crisis plans is something that each school deals with, especially at the beginning of the start of the school year, because all of our schools have a crisis plan, and that crisis plan is shared with their local law enforcement and first responders before the start of the school year, because that's one of the key things, is to have an organized plan in place that both the teachers and the first responders understand and know the buildings that they would be going to in a crisis situation. And also, this is an issue of communication with our general public, because entering schools today is changed as to when many of the parents attended, because schools were open doors and they're not. Most of our parents today drop their children off or enter a school through a vestibule in which they must buzz in, which is the first measure of our safety. So very common things happen. A parent wants to come by, their kid was sick, wants to go to the classroom and get the homework, for example. The schools do not just allow people to walk around in buildings anymore without having signed in, without being designated to go to a particular place. So there has to be an understanding between the general public, as well as the reason that schools put these measures in place is to keep all of our kids safe.
And Sarah, as legal counsel for the school administrators, how much has that become job one, really? I mean, you got to educate the kids, but maybe even before that is safety.
Absolutely, and I think that the number one thing that we all are hitting on, and we have to be very, very focused on, is planning, being proactive, not reactive. Looking at those crisis management plans, living those crisis management plans. They literally need to be something that is second nature to our staff, to our parents, to our community, to our law enforcement agencies. Having those type of relationships where we even with our children and our students, to feel comfortable of okay, if this happens, we know we're going to do this. If this happens, but we have to find that balance, right? We have to provide the safe environment, but really the main focus of our schools is a learning environment. So we have to find that that balance to be able to plan accordingly, but also provide that safe environment. And to me, and what we stress with our administrators all the time is we have to be proactive. You have to live those plans. If that plan is only being brought out one time a year at the beginning of the school year, it's not going to cut it. We need to pull that plan out, live it, and we have to update it all the time. What happens if we get a construction change? Have we informed the law enforcement? Do they have the appropriate plans? Do parents understand? Do they know there's going to be an active shooting drill, or a tornado drill, or a fire drill? And we can't just think of active shooting when we think of school safety. It has to be a 360 evaluation of our schools. And so with the recent tragedies, it's at the forefront. It's as a parent yourself, you think about it when you drop those kids off, but you trust in our schools, our administration, our staff, that they've done their work, and they've dot their I's, they've crossed their T's. So that the number one thing I think we all get behind is plan, and hope we never have to implement.
How much do you worry about making kids, you don't want to scare kids, and especially the younger, but they need to know, they need to be aware. How do you balance that as administrators? How do you know when to tell them certain things?
Well, in part of the task force, we talked about doing unannounced drills, and so that sometimes can be scary to the younger kids, but I think if it's communicated and you work your plan, but maybe you don't, there's also of Ed in U.S. Department of Ed. So the Illinois State Board of Education will work with IEMA, Illinois Emergency Management Agency. So they have $1 million grant to help with training and communication, and hopefully that will help the districts that maybe don't have the resources to help get the information to their students and to their parents and staff.
And you said resources, and I was wondering, and usually whenever we have a roundtable, Missouri, Illinois, we always end up back to funding, and I'm wondering how much of that do you have to make choices now as administrators and in working superintendents in terms of the funding, and you're trying to shift the dollars into security? Is that a big part of this?
Oh, absolutely. But it really varies on where you live and your community, your district. Illinois is really diverse. We have urban districts, suburban, rural. Some are in new school buildings. Generally, these are very secure. Some of them are in school buildings 100 years old, and that's a much bigger challenge to try to fortify those, and especially when you're retrofitting. So it comes down to funds at some point, and it's like everything else the school board and the school superintendent has to do. It's a balancing act. I have this dollar, I can only spend it once. Where's it going to go?
And Bob, are you looking at the particular schools that and say, okay, that's an older one, so I may look at them first?
Yeah, there are some simple things, yes, that schools can do to really update to make them safer. One of them is this film that is put on the glass. It prevents direct entry. There are funds available in each district to do those type of retrofits through health life safety dollars in Illinois. I think any time that a school is, undergoing renovation of their buildings, they need to look at these architectural designs that have been incorporated in new buildings for safety and security, and look at implementations as to ways that they can make their school safe for kids. And some of the recommendations I think that have came out of task force studies are excellent guidelines for us all to be aware of, in not just for intruders, but for national disasters such as tornadoes. And I think schools in Illinois and Missouri learned a lot from what the reports that came out when the Joplin tornado happened, as to how we keep our schools safe in inclement weather.
Any pushback at all? Do you ever get anybody that, whether it's administrators, teachers that don't want to be hassled or bothered, or is everybody kind of universally on board?
I think everyone's universally on board. I think you may get the size or this isn't going to happen here, but I think with the recent tragedies, whether it be weather or the shooting incidences or anything like that, it's just at everybody's forefront. We're not going to get that pushback that we got that we may have gotten in the past. However, one thing I wanted to piggyback off of Bob is that the architects, school architects, as well as, under Illinois' new school construction laws, we have to have those type of safe rooms. But one thing we talked about in the symposium earlier, which was a really neat function, and you can go to schools and see them, is age-appropriate safe places,
Right.
where they're connected to the classrooms. So no one would know that it's a safe room, but behind those cubbies or behind those, those shared hallways are actually concrete blocks that lock down. So in the case of inclement weather or, gosh forbid, an active shooter, those become very safe havens that kids of appropriate age can go into, that it's not going to rise to the level. So it's just been so many more advancements as we continue to navigate through this.
Really, the only pushback that we get is if it is a new state law unfunded mandate that says you have to do it this way now, but we're not going to give you the money to do it. Districts would love to have a newer building or a refurbished building, and if they don't, it's for reasons usually financial. So that's really the only time we get pushback. So Jeff and I on the task force we're working on, that's kind of the tack that we took, that this isn't here to add new requirements or new mandates or to penalize if you don't do this, but to offer best practices, to have model policies. So as we finish up our work with the task force over the next 4 or 5 months, what we plan to do then is have, here are
Best practices.
this is great. Yeah, this is how it should look. It's the best practices. And we're going to use the architects, how best to design a building that's safe and so forth. But without money, you just can't require it.
And is it possible to up it without a brand new building? Though you can tweak, right? I mean,
Sure.
you can do things with that are not unbelievably expensive, right? And is that the first step if you don't have money for a brand new school? Look around and say, what can we do?
Right. And last year there were grants out there for schools. They can upgrade their cameras, they can put the film on the glass. So there are things, there was a grant out there last year. We'd like to see that again. And they can also utilize those health, life, safety funds to also do that.
Thank you all for being here, taking part in the video symposium, but also stopping by on KTRS, and I know we'll talk to the Missouri folks as well. Jeff Vos is the president, Illinois State Regional Office of Education, chairman of the Governor's Illinois Task Force on Safety and Security. Bob Diber is the Madison County Regional Office of Education, past president, Illinois State Regional Office of Education. Ben Schwarm, Deputy Executive Director, Illinois Association of School Boards, also a member of the Illinois Governor's Task Force on Safety and Security. And Sarah Bocek, Associate Director and Legal Counsel, Illinois Association of School Administrators. Thanks all for being here.
Thank you.